It's such a fascinating thing, fathers, because throughout history, men have always felt kind of awkward around the fact that we don't actually give birth ourselves. And in the beginning, we didn't know that we had anything to do to make that child at all. It took science or some logic over time to figure some of that out. But in the beginning, they didn't know that. And so, given the separation that can occur because we're not the ones that give birth, when a man actually does then stand up and play that role, whether he had a part in that sperm or not, I admire that, and I stand for that, and I am grateful for it, and that it's in the world. Okay. So it's interesting being a spiritual leader, particularly one that is trying to move away from a family dynamic into what's called a pastor-flock dynamic, because what we've learned in our movement is that a family dynamic church has a glass ceiling. It never grows beyond 40 to 60 people. And that it takes a pastor-flock dynamic to actually get to grow past the 40 to 60. Now, there's a lot of people in our movement who actually don't believe this. They're positive they can grow and keep that family dynamic. And so we have about 85% of the churches in our movement hitting that glass ceiling. I'm sure they can get through it, but year after year, that percentage doesn't seem to change much. And to be a pastor-flock dynamic means that some folks are going to look at me, if they're still in that family dynamic, as the big dad. I ran a apartment management business that I created myself years ago. And I had almost 50 tenants. And it didn't take long to start noticing that how they were treating me was if I was their dad rather than just their landlord. That dynamic seeps in pretty easily. And so here we are wanting to build a spiritual community. And in the end, we can't do it as a group of individuals. We can only do it as a community. I can't do it. I'm not the savior here. I'm just one of the guys, one of the people involved in bringing this all together so that it can grow together. Now, you may be wondering what this has to do with my talk on when to know, when to hold on, and when to know when to let go. So I'll get back to this later in the talk. I want to start with some quotes. When you find yourself at the end of your rope, let go. I don't know where that's from, but I like that quote. Here's the next one. Your personal situation is not your destination. Be brave. Hold on. Continue strong. Here's another one. Some of us think holding on makes us strong, but sometimes it's letting go. Here's another one. Do not lose hold of your dreams or aspirations, for if you do, you will still exist, but you have ceased to live. And then another one. We must be willing to let go of the life we planned to have the life that is waiting for us. And then next, keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. And lastly, all the art of living lives in the fine mingling of letting go and holding on. Boy, is that confusing or what? Hold on, let go. Hold on, let go. How do you know? How do you know? Well, here is what I have learned about around all that. Let's see if I can get this thing to where it's not driving me nuts. There we go. You hold on to your dreams, to the results you want to create, you let go of process. It's really that simple. You hold on to what you believe is yours to do, but you let go about how you're going to do it, how it's going to come about. Now, this may sound a lot like my talk last week, 2 weeks ago, on the prime words of science of mind. But this is a different perspective on it, even though it is very similar in the sense that that's really what we're talking about, because when we're looking at the word results, that can be a very interesting and evolving thing for each of us. I'll give you an example. When I was in my 20s, I had a dream of being a messenger of loving, uplifting messages through music. And in fact, one of the songs I wrote 40 years ago, we're singing at the end of this service. It's called I Am Beautiful. Not shortly after I had that dream, a mentor of mine convinced me that the only way to achieve that dream, because at the time the only person making money at New Age music was Stephen Halpern, and he was playing very different music than I was. I was playing rock and roll and putting my lyrics to rock and roll. And so I was convinced by my mentor that my way of going about this would be to first become a rock and roll star and then get back to that kind of music. And I bought into that dream, and I bought into it so much I thought it was my dream. And I pursued that dream for decades. And I had some success. Not great success, but some success. But I was never happy. Like, ever. I mean, I'd get up there and I'd have these amazing gigs, and sure, in the moment I was up there and I'm rocking out, I had some amazing moments. I got to open for the Stones. I played in this one hall that was this rock joint where people just talked all night long, and it was so loud and rowdy. And in the middle of my show, I decided I'm going to try something completely different, pulled out my acoustic guitar. My band thought I was crazy because I hadn't told them I was going to do this, but I just had a feeling that this would work. In that moment, the place went dead silent. It had never done that before. The owner came up to me and said, in the 30 years he owned that bar, he had never seen that happen. So I had some amazing moments playing rock and roll. But you're on stage for what? An hour? And then there's the rest of your life. And the rest of my life felt lousy all the time. And I couldn't seem to get it anywhere. So decades passed, a lot of things happened. What an emotional roller coaster ride. I find myself in Science of Mind, and after a few years, John and Barbara, who were the ministers of the place, talked to me about being their music director. And I'd been staying away from music because I really didn't think this was for me. But they had asked, and so I stepped up, and I put together a band. One of the things I got to do in my life is actually have Billy Joel's musicians come play with me. The band I put together at this church was better. They were amazing. And I was happy. I had never experienced playing music being happy until I was at Science of Mind. So there was this shift back to playing music, right, for uplifting spirit. There was an evolution that occurred where I let go of what I thought was the dream to a higher sense of the dream. Now, here's the interesting part. I put out a couple of CDs, and all of a sudden I start getting calls from other ministries around the country, and so I start traveling, and I start playing at all these ministries around the country. And one day somebody says to me, you know, if you do the talk as well as the music, we can pay you more. I said, okay. I wasn't even a minister yet. I wasn't even a practitioner yet. I was just this musician traveling around. And so all of a sudden now I'm doing the talk along with playing the music when I'm going to these centers. And then what happens is I start to realize, wow, I actually like delivering inspirational messages uplifting messages even without the music. And so that was the beginning of the evolution of me becoming a minister. And I have never been happier. So there's been this evolution of what I thought was my dream. And I have watched that evolution occur, and I say to you, watch your own. You know, what to hold on to and what to let go of? Let go of the past. Let go of everything that happened before this very moment. And then, if an old dream you let go of pops up again, then it's not old, it's new. Because it's still here with you now. But be aware of holding on to dreams that somebody else told you you should. Somebody else told you you ought to. Or you thought this is what would be best for me. Or you thought this was the way I could make a living. So this ought to be my dream. You know, one of my dreams was to provide for my son. And I did. And I'm very proud of the fact that he always had a roof over his head, always had food, always had, if he wanted to go do an extracurricular activity, I would find the money to pay for it. And I did things to make money in those days because that was my dream at that time. But I'll tell you what, the second he turned 20, that stopped being my dream. I figured he can take care of himself now, and he has. So that's worked out pretty well. And so it allowed me to look back at what's my dream now. So we have dreams, we move on from them. So you want to look at that for yourself. So how does that come back to relate to this community? For me, it's that I have watched ministers try to carry a community forward. And I have watched them burned out, and I have watched them quit in desperation. And I want you to know that I have no intention of doing that here. That I stand for the highest of this community that you are willing to rise to. But in the end, it's going to be up to you guys, not me. I will continue to hold this place to know for you your highest and best without actually holding on to what that winds up looking like. That we as a community come together, step up, and look at what it takes for our next steps together. That's why we have team and team leaders. So there's lots of folks, and then people in those teams so that people get to participate on all levels. That's why we're offering classes. You know, one of the things that is really important to me is health. Health is balance, right? That's why I'm offering Qigong. I'm looking for a yoga teacher. I'm looking for different modalities. We're offering a nutrition class. These things are because health is really important for all of us as we rise. Lots of folks rise on one leg. They're really good at business, but they're horrible at home. You know, their families actually don't like them so much. Everybody at work loves them, right? We all know somebody like that. Or the other way around. We can't seem to get our careers off the ground because we spend so much time at home. Or we forget to take care of ourselves. We're spending so much time feeding our family and feeding our work that we don't leave any time left for ourselves to nurture ourselves. All three of those need to be balanced. And as a community, we need to find that balance. As individuals, you need to find that balance so that we're all operating out of our sweet spots, right? The beauty of this thing is we have the opportunity here. I found mine. As your minister, I found my sweet spot. I'm really, really happy doing what I'm doing. And what I want is for each of you to feel the same in your lives and in this community, both. And to do that, we have to work together to discover what we need to let go of and what's worth holding on to. The vision of this being a flourishing center is absolutely worth holding on to. The vision of this place being a place that empowers through love and joy is absolutely worth holding on to. But how we get there? Let's let go of that. Let's let go of any idea of what we thought might, has to be the way until we discover what actually works. I'm all for holding on to what works as long as we find what works. Does that make sense? And the road to greatness, the road to extraordinary, is never a straight line. They're always saying the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Well, that's true in physics or math or whatever, but it certainly doesn't seem to be the case in our lives. Has anybody here really traveled a straight line to get where you are today? No. Any frustration you've had around the fact it hasn't been a straight line, worth letting go of. Are we clear about that? Worth letting go of. Learning how to use this properly, worth holding on to. Be willing to have your life be amazing. Be willing to step into the extraordinary. Now, I've talked about the firewalk before, and so I want to be clear that this is about opening to our intuition and not going beyond it. I was a guy who always went beyond my intuition. I don't know if I've told this story, maybe I have, about that I used to ride a motorcycle. And so one day I'm going down this road, and it's very technical. It's going back and forth, lots like this. And I'm going back and forth, and I'm having a really good time. And I'm starting to head into this turn where my intuition goes, slow down. But instead I said, nah, I can do it. And the next thing I know, I'm underneath my bike. It's dragging me about 50 feet. And I have road actually inside my arm and leg that now I need to get to the emergency room to get dug out of me. But I got the message, I didn't listen. And so it's important to listen. What's yours to do and what isn't? Instead of going, nah, I really should do this. Nah, my dad told me I had to stand up and be a man. My mom told me sometimes you just got to suffer through it. No. That doesn't mean that there aren't times that are hard. Hard times happen, suffering is optional. And so we get to create here something great. I am just so much about each of you having a flourishing life and looking at whatever it takes to look at to have that for yourself. Let go of anything that is not the final destination. That identity prayer we do, that's a final destination worth having. But how we get there, I let go of that ages ago. I had no clue when I was planning. This is what makes these two particular quotes so powerful to me and why they work together so well, if I can find them again. This thing printed out upside down. It's kind of funny. Here we go. These two quotes are not contradictory. Do not lose hold of your dreams or aspirations. If you do, you may still exist, but you have ceased to live. And we must be willing to let go of the life we planned so to have the life that is waiting for us. You want to hold on to your dreams, but let go of your plans. Open to the possibility that there's something amazing waiting for you around the corner. Open to the possibility that your life can be extraordinary. Open to the possibility that you have every single resource you need to have come to fruition your dream. That's what's possible. That's what I hold for you. Thank you. I love you. Prosperity acceptors, come on up. This is the time I ask you to give. I ask you to give generously. I ask you to give fully, because the more you give, the more you receive. Don't hold back. Don't contract, but open to the possibility that what I'm saying here is true, that the flow starts with the giving and then the receiving. And the more you keep giving, the more that opens up. And the more that opens up, the more you get to experience the bigness of your life and the abundance that is possible for you. So take out what you're going to give and hold it in your hand. Don't fold it up. Open it up and hold it, knowing that this is your giving. And repeat after me. God is the source of all supply. Money is God in action. What we give, we receive multiplied abundantly. All that God is, I am.
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God.